What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to I Came with Fire podcast. Tonight we are here with Ian Roland. Ian Roland is a active duty Air Force member, security forces member, just like Zach and I, even though I just took the uniform off a couple of days ago. But Ian, man, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and let everybody know who you are?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. My name's Ian
Of
Roland,
course.
active duty security forces guy. Really not much to me. I'm an instructor at a schoolhouse within security forces, the Enterprise. I'll keep it at that, keep it pretty vague. But yeah, that's me. I've had a pretty wild life with lots of ups and downs. So really want to talk about mental health, my struggle, and then, how I got help and turned myself into a better person, really.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, no, that's mental health is definitely a topic we bring up ever so often on the podcast and like talking about. I think the first time we really had like a heavy mental health conversation was we had Dan Schilling on, wasn't it,
Yeah,
Zach?
yeah,
Yeah,
Dan.
That was dude, awesome conversation. Love Dan.
that was a good one.
Thank you. I didn't know you listened. Yeah, that was. So I'll keep it real, right? So Dan said something on that podcast that literally made me go and enroll at mental health
Okay.
at my duty location. And he said that I had to understand that what happened to me isn't me, and that it's
Yeah.
and I knowing who Dan Schilling is, right? You know, you listen, so you know. But for everybody listening, if you've seen the movie Black Hawk Down, Dan was there. Dan is
Yep.
like a special operations giant. I don't know. There's no better way to say it, really.
Yeah.
And he's really,
He's
really,
the
really humble
man.
dude.
He's Dan the man.
Literally Dan the man. And he wrote a book about Medal of Honor winner Air Force Combat Controller Master Sergeant John Chapman. Really, really good book called Alone at Dawn. But when he was talking to Zach and I just remember thinking, like, if this dude can sit here on this podcast and say what he's saying about his own mental health, then I for sure can go get help
Oh,
and
absolutely.
talk to somebody. And so that I really truly attribute the courage to go seek help and be real about it to Dan Schilling because of that episode. But yeah, we definitely
it's about fortifying all fronts.
Fortifying all fronts. That's right, brother.
Absolutely.
That's
That's
right.
it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I feel like I'm like speaking on the behalf of like dozens and dozens of airmen. Because when I posted that video when I got back from that facility, like my DMs got absolutely flooded with younger
bet.
airmen saying like, "Hey, dude, like, not really like thank you for making the video, but like I'm struggling. I'm just too scared to say anything about it." And they're afraid it's going to ruin their career, and it has not even slightly messed up my career in the slightest.
Yeah.
So it's a big
good,
weight
man.
on our shoulders tonight.
Right. Dude, I'm glad that it didn't for you, because I have seen a lot of people have it derail their career. In fact, the episode we had Matt Harris on. Did you see that one? Matt Against the
I've been
Mandate.
watching from the beginning, brother.
Oh, word. Dude, you're awesome. Yeah, but Matt and I were on the same flight together when we were at Vogelway. That's right. Love, love. And I really don't recall if we talked about it on the podcast. We definitely talked about it like afterwards when we were chit chatting. We had a troop on our flight there who
I remember
was going.
Yeah, you saying that.
Yeah, and we tried telling her, like, listen, like, we want you to get help, but go talk to somebody else, because like they're being sneaky about these things, and they're trying to get you. They're trying to ruin and derail your career. And it happened, and I genuinely will never forget that conversation that night, where we had to sit this young, like 19, 20-year-old female down on top of all the other stress that she was feeling and say, hey, like, you literally have, like, I don't remember what it was, like 3 or 4 days left in the Air Force, and you have to out process, leave Germany, and go back to the United States. And do that. Obviously she was really upset, but I'll never forget, like, Matt got down on one knee, and like the biggest fucking tear I've ever seen leave somebody's face hit his fucking boot. And it was not to sound stupid, but it was like a movie for a second. And you could just tell like how genuine, and we all like just were kind of crushed for her. And obviously none of us felt as bad as she did in that moment, but it definitely does ruin careers. And I've seen it ruin careers.
Yeah, I mean, me too.
It can ruin it before it even really starts. being in recruiting, right?
Point.
So you'll get. I've had people who are like, they're like nervous about going to BMT or whatever, and BMT isn't. I don't think it's relatively challenging or difficult, but everyone deals with challenges differently. So
sure, yeah,
it could be really hard for one type of person or whatever, and you don't really know. And I've sent people down there who I thought would be like, "Oh, you're gonna be fine," and then they have like they freak out when they get there. And I've had people who are freaking out and then they're fine. It's like, okay. Anyways, I used to tell everyone that I shipped down there, like the day they were shipping, I would tell them, "Hey, it can get stressful. You can have a bad day, and that's perfectly fine. If you do, notify your training instructor, your TI, that you want to speak to the chaplain and the chaplain only. I don't care if you're religious. I don't care what it is. You only want to speak to the chaplain. If they offer mental health, tell them no. I just want to talk to the chaplain. Because if you go to mental health, the Air Force is going to kick you out." And they'd be like, "What?" And I'd be like, "Yes, like we send so many people to BMT. There's 750 people who graduate every single week. It's ridiculous. And we send like 1,000 a week."
So, well, and what's special about chaplains, Zach?
Yeah, so I'm gonna get to that in just a sec. But like we send like 1,000 a week. So the Air Force understands that like 200 to 250 of you are not going to make it to graduation.
Right.
Like, and it
just happens.
It's the way they know. That's why they want 1,000 so they can pump out 750. And they know that they can just be like, "Nope, you're not cream of the crop, or you have this one slight issue. We're not worried about it. Go home." And they'll send you home quick. The reason why I tell them to go to the chaplain is because the chaplain's protected. You can tell the chaplain anything. The chaplain can't say to anyone else. You could literally tell the chaplain anything. And I would tell this to these kids. I would say, you could go to the chaplain, tell the chaplain you're going to murder everyone in your BMT flight, and the chaplain,
please don't.
And the chaplain will just say, "Please don't do that, but have a good day," and he will let you leave and go back to your BMT flight. Like,
that's wild.
And finally go check his gear out of fucking S4, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But that's like, and that's what I would tell them, and they'd laugh, and some parents would look at me all kind of weird. I'm like, I'm not messing around. Like, if you have a problem, go talk to the chaplain.
Yeah.
Everyone that had any issue that spoke to the chaplain graduated BMT. I had 3 that went to mental health. Wow. All 3 were kicked out.
Man.
And one of them was just saying that they were like having a bad day. They're like, I got like because they tried to get back in. So I had like all like their records and stuff from BMT, and like the counselor there, some like captain, was saying that they were like suicidal, that they like couldn't handle pressure, like all this stuff.
Do you think the Air Force is using those mental health guys at BMT as a filter?
Yes, 100%.
That's fucked.
Because I was talking to this kid, and she was like, "No, I just told the TI." The TI came up to me and was like yelling at me because I guess I was too slow. And then the TI asked me if I wanted to go home, and I said no, I'm just having a bad day. And then I guess the TI was like, "Airmen don't have bad days; they push through." And then it's like the mental game they play, like you got to just keep going. And I guess one thing led to another, and then finally she was like, "Can I go talk to someone or whatever?" And just under the stress, she forgot to ask for the chaplain, and TI took her to the mental health, and she just told them that she was having a bad day, and they held her for a week. She saw the doctor like one more time, and then the week after that, she was literally given a plane ticket, turned in all her gear, and told to go home.
Holy shit! Dude.
Did she try to like protest and say she wanted to stay?
Yeah, so mental health stuff, if it's deemed like detrimental to your like person or the people around you, you can't like try to stay. They send you home immediately. If it's if it's like you got sick or like you broke something, you can say, I'll wait to stay. But then you're like in BMT purgatory forever until you're healed up. But if it's mental health and it's considered, if the Air Force considers it a hazard to you or others, they just get rid of you.
Damn, I didn't know it was that extremely basic, man. Holy shit.
So the thing is it's 30 days. So the first 30 days that you're at BMT, you're like your contract, it doesn't like say in like very specific, But like the first 30 days, the Air Force can get rid of you for any reason, and it doesn't have to go through like a due process. Like it can just
Okay.
say
Oh,
you
okay.
don't meet the
That makes
fit, and
sense.
they'll just goodbye. At day 31, they then have to go through the whole process because now you're actually like a member of the United States Air Force, even though you haven't graduated B&T yet.
Got you.
Wow. Well,
Yeah,
man, I didn't know that. That's
I
crazy.
didn't either.
that's
Is
why
this stuff that you told the people that you were putting in, Zach?
ones that I thought would have a problem. I
Okay,
In recruiting, you tend to only say the stuff that they need to know in that moment.
sure.
Yeah.
You're
Sure.
very withholding
Well, yeah.
information.
I mean, like having
Yeah.
obviously having been in the shoes of being in delayed entry program and waiting, like your mind is thinking all these things. So
Yeah,
that's like the last thing you want to do is inundate somebody with extra shit.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, good call. But yeah, man. No, I don't know, dude. I think all of us have, if you've been in the military for any period of time, have some sort of story about mental health, whether it's your own or seeing somebody go through something, especially security forces.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that other career fields don't have their issues, because they certainly do. But, other than the special operations guys, we're the ones that carry a gun and stand a post and do all that all the time. And there's so many more factors that have to be considered. If you're not working at finance, like maintenance guys, really the only other ones that come to mind because they're working on
Facts.
aircraft,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and
Long
aside from the
hours,
long
stressful
hours,
job.
right? But like if you can't focus and you're repairing a C-17, you could kill somebody and
Oh yeah.
crash a plane, and now you're talking about
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of different things. So like those career fields are kind of the ones that get focused on like the most, but
Well,
it's something. What's up?
I want to bring something up because to a lot of our listeners who may not be military or who weren't security forces or anything
Valid.
like that,
Valid.
I think it was 2019 was the year of the Defender. Was it
Yeah.
2019? Right? Or was it
Uh
2018? It was around there. I can't remember the exact
yeah,
time.
I think you're right. 18 or 19.
18 or 19 was like the year of the Defender. So the Air
Mm-hmm.
Force that fiscal year decided that it was going to like spearhead initiatives to make security forces like more modern. It was going to like fix a
When
lot
you're done with
of
this, I have stuff to say about this shit too.
it was going
Because
to fix a lot of like uh, bureaucratic issues. They were going to remove like the bad commanders and leaders. It was all like a
keep talking.
let's make security forces great again. That's what it was like their pledge pretty much.
Literally.
That year though was
Yep.
the record for the
Yep.
most suicides for security forces members, and it was like by a landslide. And what
Yeah.
was really annoying about that year is that you had like big Air Force, like the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, like the Security Forces Center, like MAGCOMs, like all these people, all these bases toting about all the stuff they were doing for their defenders. But then whenever anyone would bring up, well, why are they all killing themselves? It would get deleted. It would get swept under the rug. It wouldn't get addressed. And I feel like
Right.
it still hasn't been addressed. They still talk about like high suicides that year because I think for the Air Force it was also like a record year just in general. And then
Right.
the year after that was really high too, but I think that was mostly because of like COVID and stuff. But the that just really pissed me off. And I wanted to just let all listeners and viewers know that like the year that the Air Force was saying that we're prioritizing our cops was the year that it seemed like they didn't prioritize them at all.
Right. And while you're talking, I found there's a graphic that the Security Forces Center put out that year for Year of the Defender. And you were right, Zach. It was 2019.
Yeah.
But this graphic, it says what defenders hold sacred. And I remember when they put this out because people read it and they were like, this is just absolutely dumb and out of touch.
Yeah, when the cops read it, they were like, what the fuck?
Mm-hmm. One of the things on here that defenders hold sacred is it says chow. And there are two security forces members sitting at here, dude. I'm gonna give you the link in the chat for you to put it up, Zach, because
I'm better at it.
but you are better at it. Big facts. I can admit that right now. You should have access to it now. But when you pulled up, yeah, it says one of the things that security force members, they use the word sacred, is chow. And it has this super cheesy photo of two cops sitting at a table, and there's a sign on the table that says reserved for security forces. So here are the other things that it says that we hold
What?
sacred, right? The beret, okay,
Go
that's
through
kind of fair.
I want,
Let's start at the top, right? The badge and shield, sure, okay, we hold sacred. All
okay,
right, fine, yes,
I
I
want
agree.
I want to say
Yes.
something though on it. I think our
Okay,
badge is freaking stupid looking compared
okay,
compared to like every other badge. And why do our DAF like members, Department of the Air Force
have a
guys,
real cop looking badge.
yeah, why do they have a real cop looking badge? And the reason why I think it looks stupid, right? So like I have a Leosa, okay?
Mm-hmm.
When I get like
What's
stopped
Iliosa?
by Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act was an act
Yeah,
enacted by George Bush, which allows law enforcement officers to conceal
there you
carry in
go.
all 50 states. We just call it as Leosa because we have a car that just says Leosa, right?
Yeah,
Anyways, there's certain, not every one of the security forces gets it. You have to meet a certain criteria. Typically, most bases make you wait for like senior airman or staff sergeant. Usually, I don't know if they're still doing
Yeah.
that now, but typically they do
yeah.
make you wait. Anyways,
Anywho,
I have that, so I can still carry. So when I get stopped by a cop, I do that. Yes, I also do carry like my badge too, because sometimes like people like cops, normal cops, carry their badge as their Leosa or something else. So just showing them my
right.
identification card, which they probably haven't seen, can be confusing to them. And I've had times where I show them this badge, and cops literally will say, "Is this a real badge?" Or like, "This looks like a toy." And it does. It's freaking
It
stupid
does.
looking.
Yeah,
I
it
want like an
does.
actual like cop badge. The DAF guys have an actual badge, and they work for
Well,
us. They're the same
let's
thing.
be real, man. As a security forces member, there are only a handful of installations where you're really doing law
True.
enforcement at the level that a cop on the outside is doing.
That's
Other
true.
than that,
Yeah.
you're a glorified security guard,
Yeah.
Yep.
and you may end up doing some sort of law enforcement if something happens. And even then, I'm out, dude. I'm gonna go all in on this
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
No one is proficient at it, to include leadership. I
Mhm.
literally had to tell a senior master sergeant in my last unit that he couldn't um, interrogate people without reading them their rights, because he wanted to essentially ask a bunch of airmen questions about something that happened. And I was like, you realize if you do that, you have to advise them and put it on a statement, right? And
Yeah. It's like a
you just see the
legal
look on his face,
process for
like
this.
just washed over him, that like, oh my God, wow, yeah, due process. I'm an E8. I have to do this. Like, yeah, no shit, you have to do that, And he literally changed his mind about asking them questions, which is pretty funny. But anyway, yeah. So badge and shield, sure. The Flash, right? Defensor Fortis, Defenders of the Force, sure. Obviously, they're gonna
Yeah.
put the badge, they're gonna put the Flash, and they're gonna put the beret on there. Okay.
I got, but I
What?
have I gotta say stuff. Sorry, I'm sorry.
No, 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 no. Yeah.
Maybe I'm not like a old school boomer cop, or whatever. But I think the beret's stupid too. There's
Disagree.
You disagree? Okay, I want to hear your
Yes.
disagreement. So berets are for like the tradition of a beret is for like a combat unit. That's typically what it's for. That's why like PJs wear them, Green Berets wear them, that type of stuff. Yes, security forces are like the infantry of the Air Force, and we are combat oriented in a way. We do go to
Mm-hmm.
like a bunch of stuff. We could do convoys. We've had fallen defenders in combat. We've had defenders
Yeah.
fight, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't like our beret in our duty uniform. I'm perfectly fine with it in dress blues. I think that's perfectly okay, and it distinguishes us pretty well. But I think for actually working, the beret is lame, and I don't like how it says that I identify as a defender in the crowd. You know what also identifies a defender in the crowd? My giant flak vest and the gun on my hip, or the police car that I arrive in. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you that I've always kind of thought that justification about making you highly visible is kind of dumb. I mean, it is true in some fashion because you definitely don't find PJs, combat controllers, TAC-P, whatever on every installation, right? So if you
Yeah.
do see somebody in a beret, 99.9% out of the time, they are security forces. So it
Mm-hmm.
is true, but it's also like not true in some regard. And I would agree when people make the argument that the beret is not like suitable for certain duties, right? So it doesn't provide any sort of like protection like the bill of a hat
Yeah.
would to help you see. It's made of wool, right?
Yeah.
So it's hot, whatever.
And then it
You
goes
know what I
over the back
mean?
of your
Not,
face, so you get a sunburn on one half and you're white on the other.
sure. I mean, yeah, if you have the skin complexion of Dracula like Zach does.
Oh my
Um,
god.
It's
but
true.
anyway, the reason why I disagree with you, Zach, is for some of the reasons that you said. Right? Um, there is a whole history to it,
Yeah,
and
there's the
security
beret
forces
homes.
members back in the day weren't called security forces; they were called air police, and then they were
Yeah.
called security police. This whole, right?
We actually
And
earned our beret in
well,
Vietnam during
that's
the
kind of what I'm
yeah.
getting at is that in Vietnam there was there's a lot of different things that security police, security forces members did earn that beret to fight for it, etc. That's kind of how it's taught to you in your CDCs, even though they don't do CDCs anymore. So like I think that it is like do you have to do you earn it? Yes. Do you have to earn it in a way that like a combat controller or a green beret or whoever wears a beret? No, you don't. Not even close, right? But I don't think that I will say this that 110% outside of like special operations in the Air Force, no one is held to a standard that the security forces guys are when we fuck up, when anything goes wrong, and so, that whole and this just might be like the whole fucking, puff my chest up kind of thing about it. But I don't want to wear a fucking ball cap like everybody else on fucking base because I'm not the fucking same. I don't get a 2 hour fucking lunch. I don't fucking get away with murder. If I'm finance and I fuck your pay up, no one fucking cares. I've seen people like get in serious fucking like financial hardships because the Air Force fucked up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yep.
but anyway, like I'm
It's
just
happened to
saying that
me.
like yeah, me too. Like I mean I didn't wind up in like serious financial
I
hardship,
had
but I've
pay
had
issues too.
finance issues because pay issues, right? But so like that's why I think the beret, matters and should stay. Even though
That's
it's
enough.
kind of I guess like phasing out, I
Yeah.
guess in some ways, like some units, like my last unit, would let you wear the ball cap or the beret. But
Mm.
when
I
you're
think I
deployed,
think
you don't wear the beret.
yeah. I think the beret, like, I understand its history and stuff, but my issue with the beret is like on duty while in like fatigues. Like that's my issue
Mm-hmm.
with the beret. It doesn't make any sense. Like if you're maybe
It's not
working the
practical. I will agree
yeah,
with you on
maybe if you're
that, but
working
that's
like the
about it.
gate, sure. But like if you're the like security
But even then, like,
person, if you're the patrol person, like I don't know, like there
well,
could definitely
what does Ian think?
yeah, Ian.
I, I see both sides of it. I definitely agree with the fact that the beret is not like functional in the slightest.
Mm-hmm.
However, I do see it from like the leadership 1,000 foot view. Like it does look a hell of a lot more professional than like a
Yeah.
typical ball cap would.
If it's
Um,
shaped properly.
yeah,
Some
if it's
people
shaped
walk around
properly,
like they're
for
Chef
sure.
Boyardee.
Yeah,
Sure.
I haven't worn my beret in like coming up on 4 years. We wear ball caps
Same.
where I work at,
Yeah.
so
Well, I mean, you're an instructor, and then Zach was a recruiter, so of course Zach hasn't worn his beret. He's not allowed to, are you?
No, they
Are you allowed to wear
actually
your?
yeah, they actually encourage you to, but
Oh, really?
yeah, because they want you to like it's a talking
Look
point to
sharp
kids. Yeah, it's a talking point to
and look
kids
more
because like
professional, like Ian said.
it has nothing to do with looking more professional or sharp. It's because
Sure,
the
it does.
army guy next to me is going to be wearing his stupid ass non-ball cap and his like hover, and then
Which looks better.
I like the ball cap more, and I'm gonna uh,
We know.
I'm gonna be sitting there with my beret, and maybe the kid will come up and go, "Why are you different?" And then I explain why I'm different.
mm.
That's the
Gotcha.
thought process.
I don't
Anyway.
agree with the fact that it identifies us in a mass populace, because like what Zach was saying, like
Yeah.
the plate carrier, the gun, the patrol car.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can go both
Yeah.
ways on it.
And
And-
I'll tell you right now, if there's something serious happening where everybody's panicking, they're not going to be like, "Where's a cop?" and looking around for a blue
Oh,
beret on
everyone's
the sidewalk.
covered.
They're
Hell no.
fucking looking to get the hell out of there, dude.
Yeah, they're running, dude.
So yeah,
And 9 times
100%.
out of 10, that cop who's off duty at the shop bet grabbing his tornadoes with his beret and stuff,
Yeah.
he's also running away. He's not going to the.
Well, I will say this: before we jumped in and hit record, we were talking about Camp Simba, and that's exactly what happened when Camp Simba got attacked. Is the cops assigned to do security there and defend that installation turn tail and run?
Retrograded.
No, man.
They
And
retreated.
literally, the person in charge of base defense that day drove back to base to get away from it and left his subordinates out there.
Yeah.
So there's a whole investigation about that. So yeah, I mean, but anyway,
what's funny? We'll finish this thing, but I just want to say what's funny about that too is there were like security forces members, like when they got back to their like base, trying to put in for like combat action medals and like other stuff.
Yep.
And they were all denied because they're like, none of you fired a shot. What do you mean you want a combat action medal?
I will say this:
you left.
one of the guys I went to tech school with was there.
Yeah.
And he actually did leave the installation to go respond when the Army guys that were out there went and left to the airfield to respond to that.
Hell yeah.
And he has a bronze star and his combat action ribbon for it. And I'd like to get him on the podcast eventually. I won't say his name.
Dude. Fuck
I won't say his name.
Yeah.
I could tell you guys afterwards. Maybe you guys will know him, but we went to tech school with him. So one cop I know of at least did something when that happened. So, but it definitely brings a lot of shame to career field and validates kind of what, everybody thinks about how cops just aren't tough. Cause I mean, most of us are not. That's a fact. So, but anyway, this graphic, right, is kind of like the first four, like, are givens, right? Of course, maybe even the first five, they're going to put on there the badge, the flash, the beret, the general orders, and small arms expertise, because those are like the bread and butter, right?
Yeah.
But I know for a fact, unless you're a fucking 45-year-old master sergeant, no one holds guard mount sacred, right? No one absolutely holds post briefings sacred unless you're that dickhead colonel that comes through the gate and wants to get one from an airman to feel important. All weather day and night force, no one holds that sacred. Chow is probably the dumbest one on here. Actually, I take that back. Chow is the second dumbest one on there, in my opinion. Post briefings are first. And then a lot of cops do take dress and appearance seriously, but I do think that's absolutely going out the fucking window. So just when this graphic came out, it was one of the most tone deaf things I've ever seen because of what you were saying, Zach, that the suicide rate that year was through the roof. And then this is what Chief Master Sergeant Tamala Hartz decided she was going to put out. And not a single word about anything else, just this dumbass graphic. So I'm separating. I'm saying
it's funny because like you actually don't get a chow/meal break.
I know that's what's so funny about it. You don't. How many times have you had to get up to the guard shack to go check IDs or something in the middle of your burrito or your tornado or whatever?
Or how about when you're eating and you get dispatched to a call?
And then
that too, right? It's like clockwork.
Most bases don't even like, if you are a cop, even if you're an airman in the dorms, if you're a cop, you usually get like your full basic allowance of sustenance, your BAS, because your work is so irregular that you can't even go to the chow hall. So most security forces members don't even know what the fuck a chow hall is or ever been in one since tech school.
Facts, dude. Right. Facts.
Right. Yeah, most anybody on chow card is a brand new airman who hasn't processed their BAS paperwork yet. That's literally it, like. So, but anyway, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? Like, I felt like this was a super tone deaf thing when it got put out.
Yeah, and I remember there was like a big briefing by our commander, and they were talking about, we're going to get these new sick guns, and they're going to have silencers on them, and then we're going to get this sick ass new rifle. It's going to have a silencer on it. It's going to have all cool stuff. It took like what, some units still don't even have the SIG P320 or the whatever the heck it is, the M19.
Yeah.
It's just SIG P320, but some units still don't have it. Those
Yeah.
rifles, no idea when those are coming. We still are using the same ones. And I know for a fact that the second all those rifles show up with those suppressors, even if they do show up with those suppressors, they're going to immediately take them off. They're going to be just stored in the guard mount room or in the armory.
Oh, the armory, yeah.
Yeah, and then when shit hits the fan, before you respond to the active shooter, stop by the armory and grab your suppressor real quick. Like, that's
nah, Sam. Nope.
Yeah, no.
I'm going straight.
Yeah.
If I have to,
I agree.
If I'm
They
not
take
on
them off the
duty,
gun.
Yeah, no, they take them off the gun. So stupid.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you remember when this came out, Ian?
Yeah, and like you guys are saying, just extremely tone deaf. And my original thought, because if I think back to 2019, I remember security forces dudes and dudettes dropping like flies that year.
Yeah.
And I saw this, and I was like, no, like this is not what right looks like, man. Like even in my own opinion, I was a senior airman at the time, but I was like, no, dude, this isn't right. And this is when I thought, or not really thought, I began to see like the systemic issues that we have in security forces. I started seeing them at Camp Zimba, and then as I've progressed throughout my career, it's made me make the decision to separate in a couple of years, for whatever that's worth. But
yeah, and you know, it's sadly that's the story for a lot of people, you know, who just are sick and tired. Like, you know, there obviously this is the military, and there is an element 100% of that. This is the military, and you have to expect, you know, a certain level of the shit sandwich that you're going to have to eat, right?
Yeah,
and that just comes with the territory. But at the same time, you know, you can still get treated like a human being and respected as a human being. And dude, like, you know, I could sit here and talk and just tell stories for forever about shit that's happened, you know, on flights or other flights that, you know, in my unit, and things that people have done to other people they should be in jail for, you know,
dude.
and it's all in the name of being tough, you know. And you know, and I'm not even talking about things like hazing. I'm talking about things that are like way worse, you know. And it's just, I mean,
I was gonna say, I just looked up the suicide numbers for like security forces and that
for
time
2019.
Yeah. So let me give you a little couple years before. So 2017, the entire Air Force had 11 suicides. 2017.
The whole Air Force.
The whole Air
That's
Force.
not terrible.
2018, they had 3. The entire Air Force had 3.
Whoa.
In 2019, the United States Air Force had 137 suicides.
Dude, what the fuck?
It went from 3 to 137. They always include civilians, reservists, and guardsmen, just so you know. So of the 137, 84 were active duty airmen. Of the 84, 57 were security forces.
Yeah, dude.
Dude, I remember. I was,
fuck,
dude. Do you know how many fucking
that's like 70
black photos of badges
of
with bands on them I remember being posted on fucking Facebook and shit that year? I was like, I remember at one point there was like 3 in a week, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like,
I remember
this is crazy. And everyone was asking that question. What the fuck is going on?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And I just, you know, that's what I'm getting at, man, is that year, it was almost like, yes, obviously they decided that 2019 was the year of the Defender. They were going to focus on it. They're going to improve their career field. They were trying to build some sort of culture and, you know, make that culture more like military than it already was. And that's what the point of, that's what the point of this graphic was, right? But you know, instead of going with the game plan, no matter what, ride or die, you fucking start seeing this massive fucking uptick in suicides in your career field. Maybe we pump the brakes on the stupid fucking graphics and start addressing these issues. And you know what? I didn't see a single fucking post or comment from any of these people about the situation. And I'll tell you a true fucking story, okay? I met Chief Hartz twice. Once at Maelstrom and once in Germany when I was there. Or take it back. It wasn't at Maelstrom. It was when I was at 7-level school. So it was at Lackland. It was when I was assigned to Maelstrom. Was not impressed either time at all. And somebody asked her a question in like a briefing we all had to go to. And essentially it was like, hey, what are you guys doing about the mental health crisis going on? I saw somebody ask a question online one day about letting people retrain, and the retrain rate is like mega low. Like, don't you think that that would help people out a little bit? And letting them go into other career fields. They want to stay in the Air Force, but they don't want to stay security forces. And she basically got fucking pissed off and told this dude to get fucked, like in front of everybody, and you're not going anywhere. I don't care. You're not going anywhere. You put on a beret, that's your fucking job. And we don't that's not even a conversation we're about to have here in front of everybody. And it just was, again, like everything I came to expect from her. But this, again, like I said, this was that year, sitting in a briefing room, having this conversation, trying to have this conversation with the highest ranking enlisted member in our force, right? And that was her response.
I'd be willing to bet that the year of the Defender was the reason for the spike in suicides.
What do you mean?
So the 2 years before, you had 11 and 3. 2018, there wasn't not a single cop killed himself. Not one. 2018. 2019, you jump up to 57 in 1 year. That's just.
Are you saying that maybe
this is before like anything crazy global thing happened, right? I'm speculating that because they announced the year of the Defender like the end of fiscal year 2018, so like August, September 2018, and then 1 October is the new fiscal year, so 2019. That's when they started the year of the Defender, and that's when the suicide started to like ramp up. I'm thinking that it was the year of the Defender. A whole bunch of airmen and security forces were like, hey, they're going to fix all these issues. They're going to take care of us. And then they noticed that nothing was changing and that it was all fluff. And it just caused a huge rebound, like a big, almost like a, I don't know, like a reverb.
I want to know what you think, Ian. Do you think that maybe seeing all these people take their lives maybe kind of had an accumulative effect, so to speak, where it kind of, like, I hate saying this, but like started a chain reaction of suicides?
Oh, I definitely agree, man. Like, suicide prevention, it's been, if you don't address it as like a resiliency type of training, if you just talk about suicide in general, it puts that in people's minds. And if people are already feeling like suicidal thoughts, they're already feeling down or depressed, now you're thinking about it more. And now it's just a cascading effect. Your thoughts are eventually going to become actions that can potentially affect your life in that way. If that makes sense.
It does. And it's crazy because when we had Vince Vargas on, you may remember, Zach, one of his initiatives is, and maybe you could look it up real quick, Zach, so we could give it a shout out. But one of the things he does also is bringing awareness to resiliency and mental health. And for those who don't know, Vince is a U.S. Army veteran, but and Border Patrol veteran. But he said that what you just said is that the training that we all got back in the day used to be that, hey, saying the word suicide isn't actually giving somebody the idea is already there. And a lot of the new research they've done on it is that, yes, actually talking about it in that way, like you said, does put the idea in people's heads, and that we need to revamp how we talk about it. And you said the right word, man, is resiliency. And I've always said this, that the Air Force doesn't actually teach people how to be resilient. It teaches people how to be professional victims, 110%. What did you find it, Zach?
I can't find exactly what he calls it, but it's
okay.
He is talking about how there's a different mindset when it comes to talking about suicides. Like, oh, it's a suicide, or talking about how do you take care of the issues before you get to suicide. He is talking about
I kind of liked his approach on that because it was a little bit of tough love, not like completely, but it was like, hey, you really do have to take this in your hands and do something about it.
dude, I think tough love is, I mean, for me and my personality type, like
Mm-hmm.
it's what helped me like get to the point where I'm at now. Because I
Mm-hmm.
don't want somebody just allowing me to play the victim, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. Like
Yeah.
I need somebody, and thankfully I had a mentor in my life at the time who basically called me out of my shit. And we'll get there when we get there in the conversation, but
No,
it
let's
wasn't one
hear
of
it, man. I
those.
think it's a good spot to jump in, honestly.
Okay, I'll start from my childhood
Let's
because
do it.
that's really
Whatever you feel
where it all
comfortable with.
started. Yeah, so grew up in Fresno, California. Um, very old
California.
school. Yeah, California. Very old school Christian type family.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
At least what I thought was old school Christian type family. My dad turned out to be one of the biggest hypocrites on the face of the planet. He was very
Damn.
emotionally and physically abusive to my mom, my brother, and I. Um,
Damn.
punched me in the face numerous times, threw me through doors. My mom got the worst of it, man. I know it's a lot just
No, no,
jumping
no.
into it, but
No,
Yeah.
please.
full send. Um,
Yep.
yeah, it got to the point where when I was 12 years old, I stood up to him and I went after him with a belt and basically beat the shit out of him. Cops got called.
Oh,
I
wow.
got charged with assault and battery. My dad ended up
At
going to
12.
jail at 12 years old. Yeah, that's the California justice system, which eventually led to issues with my security clearance getting into the military because I had completely forgotten
As a
about it.
minor. That's crazy.
Yep.
Yep. I thought as a minor it'd be expunged or they wouldn't have access
Or
to it. But
sealed.
yeah,
No
the
records are
federal
sealed.
investigator just
No
asked
records are
me,
sealed. It's not a real thing.
Hmm.
yeah, the federal
But
investigator
anyway.
just asked me what happened. And I was like, yeah, dude, like I stood up for my mother and this is what
Mhm.
happened. But yeah, dad went to jail. They were both really addicted to like prescription painkillers. Both of them had physical issues. My
Damn,
mom
bro.
fell down a flight of stairs before she got
Mm-hmm.
pregnant with me, so messed up her back. After my dad went to jail, my mom's drug addiction like skyrocketed, and I can't really blame her. So I had become the man of the house for a little bit. Again, at 12 years old, I basically raised my brother with some help from my grandma and some other people in the family, but it was hard,
Damn,
man.
man.
Um,
What was that like, being in high school, I assume, you know what I mean,
yep.
middle of high school, raising your younger sibling? Like how did that what was it like going through it, and then kind of how has that shaped your, outlook as an adult, right? With as a father, like
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of parallels to it, man. And I felt like being put in that situation made me mature a lot faster than I probably should have. So I
Mhm.
kind of started acting like an adult, like middle of high school years. But
Right.
it was hard, man. I grew up skateboarding in California, so like that was my outlet, and that's really the
Nice.
only thing I focused my life on. Like your typical skater boy stuff. Like I wanted to be pro and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all that, crazy
Yep.
stuff. So skateboarding was a big outlet for
Tony
me.
Hawk.
My
Ian
brother
Roland's
did
pro
a little
skater
bit with me.
2004.
Oh, dude, I wish.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be in the military if that happened.
Yeah, right?
But yeah, it was. Looking back on it now, I'm very grateful for it because it got me to a decent maturity point pretty early on in my life, and I feel like it's helped with being a father because I'm already kind of used to some aspects of it, like the patience and all that good stuff. But
Sure.
yeah, definitely, I still have my struggles as a father and as a husband, and yeah, man.
Right. So,
Um,
that must have been really hard for you then to make the call to join the military and walk away from your younger siblings, because if you
yeah,
were sort of in that like in loco parentis role for your younger sibling, like was
yeah.
that like an easy decision for you because you wanted to get away, or was it something that you struggled with?
No, it was very easy for me to make that decision to get in the military because I
Okay.
was stuck in California, man. I was going to school to be a U.S. history teacher, and there's really only so
Awesome.
much you can do as a U.S. history teacher. I majored in
Other than teach
the
history.
Reconstruction era onto modern times
Nice.
at the time.
Nice.
Um,
Post Civil
don't
War.
ask me
Nice, nice.
to recall anything; all that shit is brain dumped at this point.
Yeah,
But
bro, I need to hear about Andrew Johnson right now.
oh shit. But no, it was pretty easy for me to make that decision. And honestly, me joining the military just made my brother and I closer than we already were.
Hmm.
your typical brother relationship. Like we're always at each other's throats, but like we have each
Mm-hmm.
other's back at the end of the day. And after I graduated basic training, something happened with him, like a shift in his mentality towards our relationship, like in a good way. Like,
Okay. Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Good.
real good way. Like he and I are incredibly close to this day.
Well, that's amazing, man. It's kind
But
of like one of those things where like the fucking silver lining on the whole situation now is you guys have that relationship.
oh yeah, for
What
sure.
what does he do?
He works at Crumble Cookie as like
Okay.
part of their management
Yeah,
staff.
bro. You
Yeah.
the full disclosure, I've never had a crumble cookie. So
Neither have I.
Oh no shit.
There's like
never.
one here in like Syracuse, which is like a city nearby, and I've never.
They're building
been
one in
by.
my town right now, Zach. When you get here, you know what we'll do is we'll both go because it's not open yet, and then we'll send a Snapchat to Ian of us trying a crumble cookie.
Let's do
So
it.
My
together.
wife is
They're
obsessed
so
with Crumble
big.
Cookies, dude.
Oh, dude, we'll
They're
do
good.
the whole like Lady and the Tramp thing. Zach and one into his
We'll have
mouth,
to eat
Slim
the
Jim
crumble
chicken
cookie
style.
and then go
Exactly.
and then go for a run immediately after to burn it off.
Yeah, it's like
Dude,
1,000 calories a cookie, dude. Like
Jesus Christ.
it's
That's
calorically
nuts, man.
dense.
2 cookies, you're good for the day. 2,000
Yeah,
I
calories.
guess, dude. That's like the perfect thing to buy a homeless person, I guess. Hey, dude, or like it's like an MRE almost. You know, this has got 3,500 calories. It's 2 cookies. Holy shit! But yeah,
Thanks, brother.
right. But yeah, man. So that obviously, your childhood played on a lot of the. I guess would you say that like it was like a build up, and then
Oh,
kind of the
for sure.
military? How did the military compound a lot of what you were going through?
Yeah. So, like every other airman, I got married to a woman I shouldn't have gotten married to, my starter wife, as what I
Started up.
call her.
Yep.
Yep. Married her, and I deployed
We
to
have
the
all been
place we were
there.
talking about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and worked with an organization that is in the
Mm-hmm.
special operations realm. And I got
Yeah.
to do some medicine alongside them. They put us through like
Nice.
this 6-week like medical pipeline to get certified on it, advanced tactical combat medicine. Like I don't want to church it up like I'm a medic or anything like that, but
Right.
yeah,
But more than the average bear.
we were actually plugging holes out there, dude. Like
That's cool.
Damn,
stuff
yeah,
was
that is.
happening at least all the time while I was out there. At least like the medical side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Shit, man. The team from the base that I went from, Mountain Home, at the time, they were the team that did changeover with the Army Infantry brigade or regiment, whatever you want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
One of my buddies, there was a school bus full of kids that got blown up by an IED, and they brought all the kids to that place, and he worked on these kids,
Jesus.
like blown in half.
Mm-hmm.
It was crazy, dude. But I'm not going to church up my scenario to that level because it really wasn't as horrific. But yeah,
Right.
the time happened where I actually had to use it, and I had a dude die on me, like right in front of us.
Damn.
So that was like the beginning of the downward cycle. A couple days after that, my ex-wife admitted that she had basically been having a whole separate life with another dude. So
Solid.
2 like very traumatic things happened within a couple of days of each other. Finished out the rest of the deployment, went back home, took my R&R and my leave, spent time with my mom, went back to Mountain Home after all that. And my very first day back at work, I was working a gate shift, and after morning traffic, I got a call from my brother, said mom was dead. And apparently she had...
Holy shit,
I
man.
was just about to say,
overdosed.
things happen in 3, so I was waiting for the 3rd one.
Yep.
She OD'd. Oh my god.
She OD'd. Yeah. Then a couple months after that, my first wife ended up leaving me for the dude that she had a separate life with. So
Right.
I lost what I thought was everything, dude.
I mean, in that context, it basically was everything.
Your
Yeah.
whole life.
I went down a hole, dude. Like,
How could you not?
became the highest functioning alcoholic senior airman of all time. It was crazy, dude. Like, my career skyrocketed when I was going through all that stuff because I used it as a distraction. Like, it was crazy.
Okay.
I was
Before Mafia
EST.
Consigliere.
Right.
Yeah.
We were fortunate enough at Mountain Home while I was there to have an EST, and at the time we were one of the
That's
only
cool.
ESTs to have like an actual like national SWAT certification. It wasn't just like,
That's cool.
hey, like let's train every once in a while type thing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
But
Oh, that's awesome.
graduated SWAT basic like 2 weeks after my first wife left, and multiple other SWAT schools after that. All kinds of stuff that probably shouldn't have happened because of
Mm-hmm.
how my mental state was, but
But that
I was
was
good to
your out at
Alma.
the time. Your
Yep.
out. Your comfort was
Literally.
doing well at work,
Oh yeah.
succeeding in that, killing in that realm. You know.
Yeah.
That's what
It was a
people do.
wild time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at what point, did you kind of where that distraction was no longer, keeping all of that at bay?
Yeah, it wasn't until I got to where I work at now, and I started working in the supply and logistics section of our unit. We had the kid a couple years ago, so me just lateral transferring over to supply and logistics just made more sense for the family. We can go home every day, and the
Yeah,
schedule's a little bit better.
definitely.
So with all that extra free time, my mind wasn't occupied. So
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
symptoms of PTSD and all that stuff just got astronomically worse. I was coming home super, super angry every single day. Um, I've never, obviously, I've never physically abused my wife, but I've said a lot of things that I regret to her, man. And there was one instance with my daughter that kind of like highlighted like oh dude, I have to get checked out now. She was at the time she was 12 months old, and she's just doing baby stuff, man. Like she's learning how to walk and all that crazy stuff.
Right.
On our coffee table, I was an irresponsible parent. I left a lot of stuff on the coffee table, and she
Mm-hmm.
just smacked it on the floor. And dude, I
Mm-hmm.
came unglued. Like I stood up and I was like, "What the fuck?" Like to a baby, man.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
she turned around and her eyes were so full of tears, and she looked at me like she was
Fuck.
scared. And I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
holy fuck, dude, I'm becoming my dad. Like,
Dude,
holy
that had to
shit.
feel insane.
It was the lowest I've ever felt in my life. And it was just a knee jerk reaction. I didn't even
Right.
think about it. It just
Yeah.
happened. A couple of months went by after that, and a couple of my coworkers had a legit like intervention with me. One of them told
What
me that
what led them to
um,
do that? If you don't mind
I
my
was just
asking.
always yeah, yeah. I was just always angry at work, man. Like any
Mm-hmm.
slight inconvenience, I would go fucking crazy and rip people's heads off, which is completely out of character for me because I'm
Mm-hmm.
generally a pretty nice and outgoing type person. But
Yeah.
those days were just dark, man. I couldn't block it anymore.
Right.
So
That's what
they
was
told
happening.
me,
It was coming out.
yep, they told me if I don't get help, they're going to report me to mental health. And that was the
Holy
best
shit.
thing that has ever happened to me, is having a group of friends that held me accountable.
How did you take it in that moment when they did that?
In the moment, I was super pissed. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
going to lie.
I
Okay.
bet.
Like, I told them, I was like, man, like,
Fuck you.
yeah,
I'm gonna
like,
fuck
fuck
you
you.
up.
Like, I don't need help. I was like, I'm not a fucking pussy. I was like, I've been through all this shit. Like, you
Yeah,
got to
man.
fucking put a bullet in my head before I quit.
You better
Like, all
you better
this.
call an ambulance after you call mental health because you're gonna need one.
Not for
Yeah,
me.
right? Not for me, for you.
Call an
Yep. Yep.
ambulance.
And yeah, I mean, my boss at the time saw it. Um, my OIC saw it, and they held me accountable, man. And it was I'm incredibly grateful for it.
It took a lot of courage for those guys to do that to you, I'm
Oh,
sure.
for sure, for sure. So I ended up just saying, "Fuck it." I let go of it, or of everything. I let go of my pride, let go of my ego, and I went straight to mental health. And I was like, "Dude, I'm broken. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I am a shell of who I used to be." Um, that first session was bad. It was the only time I've cried sober since my mom's death.
Holy shit, man.
How'd
I've been
that
sober
feel?
for like
Was
3
ever
years.
was ever
Well, I'm
Sorry.
just saying,
meaning?
like, that's intense.
Yeah.
What's that, Zach?
I said, how did it feel to like
Oh,
have like
okay.
an actual cry, like
Uh,
while
I,
sober, like one that you would remember, one that you fully experienced, one that you. What was that
it
like?
felt relieving. Like it
Okay.
really
I'm
did feel
sure.
like 1,000 pound weight lifted off my chest. And to finally come to the grips with myself that I am fucked up or was fucked up at the time. And I'm finally addressing everything head on like I should have done all those years ago. I mean, if it wasn't for a couple people in my old chain of command, I'll shout a dude out. His name is
Oh yeah,
Kyle Heworth. He's a senior now. We were TDY to Florida for like 3
Hepworth.
months. Sound
Name just
familiar?
sounds familiar. Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
I don't want to derail you, but yeah, no.
No, you're good. Right as my divorce initiated, there was a team of us that got sent to South Florida to work a presidential security mission. It was us guarding the F-15s that were protecting Air Force One at the time when Trump was in office, out in like the Fort Lauderdale area.
Got
So
you.
as
Super
a new
Air Force
single
One.
dude, yeah, as a new single dude in Southern Florida around Miami, I had a lot of fun. We partied all the time, but yeah, he was a master at the time. I was a senior airman. We were sharing a bottle of whiskey one weekend, and
Nice.
He got me to the point where I was so drunk I was just bawling my eyes out, and he slammed like the thing of whiskey on the table. He was like, "Ian, I love you. I'm sick of seeing yourself drink your life away one glass at a time."
I literally just am getting that like fucking picture in my head of Good Will Hunting where Robin Williams is like, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault." You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it sounds like you had like the real life version of that.
That man saved my life. Like I am physically alive because of that man. And I wish he and I were as close as we used to be. Obviously, like, we go our separate ways in our career. It just kind of happens. But he was the only adult male besides my dad and a couple others to tell me that they love me and look me straight in the eye and say it. And I was like, oh my God, dude. Okay, like, need to get this right. So the drinking was under control after that. And then I relapsed extremely hard when I got to where I'm at currently. And now it's just, sorry.
No, I was just going to ask, like, what, if there is even a reason, what caused you to relapse?
It was during the COVID time is when I relapsed really hard. And honestly, dude, it was just free time.
A lot of that going around, that's for sure.
Yep. Free time, and I was bored. That's really it. It's super weird. I was still working out, like I was still in shape. I was still doing all my other stuff, but it got to a point where I couldn't sleep unless I was blackout drunk, man. Like legit blackout drunk. And we're talking, got to get up. I have an hour and a half drive to work. I'm driving hungover as hell. Like it was just not safe, dude. I was drinking, that beer Voodoo Ranger, like that super strong IPA. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was drinking a 6-pack of that a night. Like a night. Dude, during the weeknights.
There's like 10%, aren't they?
They're like 14%,
something like that,
bro.
14. This is like a German beer. Holy shit, dog.
Wow. Yeah.
Dude, your liver fucking wrote his congressman twice, probably.
Oh, dude, it was gnarly.
Wrote the president.
And then on the weekend, like my wife and I would get like a couple big bottles of like vodka and just party all weekend, like rinse and repeat the next week. And, man, it was rough.
Can I just say real quick about that, dude? Like, knowing the mental health issues the military, like as a military, we deal with, and every single military installation has a Class 6. For people who don't know, that's a liquor store on base, and it's typically a hell of a lot cheaper than buying liquor off base. And like, it's almost like it's encouraged to do this, like what you're talking about, because bro, I can't tell you, like, honestly, I cannot tell you how much money as an airman, especially when I was in the dorms or like when I was a young staff sergeant, that I spent on 30 racks, on fifths.
Thousands.
Yeah.
Thousands.
And it, dude,
it
feels predatory almost.
Yeah.
Every event in like recruiting, we have like semi-annuals, training events, annuals, like all this stuff. And the big thing is always, we're all going to get sloshed. We're going to get smashed.
Yep.
We're going to relieve all the stress that we've built up for the last year.
Well, guys, what's the prototypical security forces way of kicking back after work?
Oh, dude, we get blasted together.
Right. What do we call it? Choir practice, right? No, am I the only one that knows that?
I've never heard that.
I'll just put my insert foot into mouth. Right. Oh, yeah, well, Zach's got an excuse. He was fucking Mormon forever. Right. But no, choir practice. Right. I mean, that's what I've always heard it called. But it's like what it is, man. Like I I can't like either the flight chief or a tech, somebody, you know, just had maybe a 30 rack of cores in the back of his truck, and like after fucking duty, we'd go. Coming off mids, it's 6:30 in the morning, and by the time you leave the parking lot, you're 3 or 4 fucking beers deep.
Beers deep,
You know,
yeah.
yeah. Like that's kind of the way it is, bro. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna tell this is a true fucking story, bro. And I'm not gonna say his name, but if he listens to it, he'll know exactly what I'm about to say. When I was an airman, I had and he still is a really, really good friend of mine. We have been through so much. We talk every single day, pretty much. And he had a truck, and I come into work. You know, I had to pick up a vehicle every morning, so I had to be at like fucking gear issue at like 3:45, and I drive from gear issue over to the armory, 2 different buildings, and he's sitting in a camping chair in the bed of his truck, so he's like up off the ground, and he's literally drinking before we go in to fucking arm up. And I was, bro, and I could like the culture of this flight was insane, man. And I walked up to him because I was police too that day. And you know, I walked up to him and I was like, "What's up, man?" And like, I had to at first, like, I could see because it's dark outside and it's the typical parking lot with the orange fucking parking lot lights. You know, like I saw the can when I drove in, and I was like, "That looks like Coors, but like it might not be." You know what I mean? So I walked over to him to see, you know, if it was really more than anything, right? And it was. He's like, "What's up, bro?" He's like, "You want one?" And I was like, "Nah, fam. Like I don't, bro. Like as much as like we would do this any other time." And I literally said this to him. I said, "Dude, don't make me have to be put in position to arrest you today,
Yeah,
because like I'd be
facts.
like, I'm police too. That'll be
Mm-hmm.
me." And I will never forget the look on his face. And even after that, he told me that he said he told his mom that, and that he never forgotten to say that. And like, you know, it just, that is, and I don't say that to like, you know, talk myself up or something. I say that because that I'm trying to paint a picture of drinking as a culture,
Yeah.
especially in security forces, just because that's what we know, right? I know maintenance
Oh
guys
yeah.
that fucking
Mm-hmm.
are just functioning alcoholics too, like you were talking about, you know. But like, um, that was normal. Is all I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. Is like literally about to go get a gun, full well knowing like what could happen to you in a camping chair in the bed of your truck out in the open, fucking silver bullet, you know, right before
Yeah.
arming. Like just
Yeah.
was
It's
that's the
reckless,
culture.
dude.
That's the culture, man. Exactly. It is
Vince
reckless.
Vince was talking about Vince Vargas. He's talking about how drinking is like is usually almost always correlated with suicides because
Yes.
it's a
Yeah.
depressant. Like,
It's
Yes.
depressant.
and if you
Absolutely.
just constantly drinking and that's your out, like you're
Yep.
increasing every time you keep drinking, you're increasing your chances to just finally end it
Yeah.
all.
Dude, the
The
only
first
time, like, sorry.
no. Go ahead, man. I'll tell you. I'll say what I was gonna say after you.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say, like, I can completely corroborate that because the only time I had like really like actual like suicidal thoughts that almost led to ideations when I was going through all that stuff was when I was drunk. Like,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely when I was drunk.
Yeah, man. The first time I knew somebody in that I actually knew in the military who took their life was a friend of mine from tech school, and he had gone to FE because the majority of my team went to one of the big three, and
Mm.
he was on TRF, got drunk with on his 21st birthday with a bunch of the TRF guys. Supposedly, there was a lot of hazing that went on, and drunk on his 21st birthday went back to his fucking quarters in the TRF building and killed himself.
I know
And
who
he was
you're
drunk.
talking about.
Yeah,
I have
this
a
was
yeah
yeah.
a buddy I
Almost, I
worked
mean,
with
his
was there
Brandon
when it
Tafoya.
happened.
That's his name. Brandon Tafoya was. I went to tech school with him. He took his life because of it.
Yeah.
And that was and just what you say, Zach, is he was drunk.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's crazy because like there's been multiple suicides that, you know, have been to, right,
Yep.
and have heard from other people, and almost all of them there's some sort of alcohol involved, you know,
Or
whether it's,
drug.
or
Yep.
I was just about to say, or drug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some
Almost
type
every
of
time.
Prescription
depressant.
or otherwise.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ian, you were talking about how like you kind of like relapse when you start having like a lot of time again. and I wanted to touch back on that. Where like kind of my own personal story is like time definitely, if you're not, I guess, staying busy, or you're not kind of like staying active and stuff, and you do kind of get stuck in time, you can get stuck in your own thoughts. And there's a lot of people who fear their own
That's
thoughts.
a good
Like
point, man.
they can't be in their own head. They can't like talk to themselves. That type
And
of
that
stuff.
was me for the longest time,
Yeah,
bro.
because they're afraid of themselves. They're like worried.
Yeah.
And in my time in security forces, I've seen death. There was a little girl, and I think I've talked about this before, or I think I've said it at least. I think in a popcorn podcast or something. But there was a little girl. Her name was Madison. She died when I was a senior airman. I responded to a crash. It was pretty shitty.
Yeah.
She's like an 8-year-old little girl. It was really, really shitty. I remember in that moment that it didn't really faze me. I was like, that sucks. Sucks, that's really crappy. I remember my flight chief, after I turned in, was like, Smith, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine, sir. And then I just continued working and stuff. But as months, years, I started to realize that she was always in my head. And like I couldn't get her out, and it'd become more and more. So I would distract it. I'd play a lot of video games. So I never drank. I've never done drugs, that type of stuff. So like my outs was hardcore video games or
LDS,
like,
bro.
LDS. Choose the right CTR. Or I would go running a whole lot. Like I was in like really fit shape and stuff. But something that happened, like this is the time piece, is I devoted a lot to like being a really good cop, being really good security force. Kind of like what you were saying, you were doing SWAT stuff, you're doing a whole bunch of cool stuff. Came back from my deployment with Brandon and got assigned to recruiting duty and went to recruiter school, and that was a lot of time, a lot of stuff. But then I got to my actual recruiting duty, and like I was saying earlier before we started the podcast, when we were just kind of chit-chatting, it's just me. It's just me in an office. There was no like immediate supervisor I saw every day. There was no top cover. There was no nothing. And really quickly, within like a matter of like months, I started to feel like existential dread. I was thinking like everyone was trying to kill me. Like I was having like, panic attacks. Time I was literally in the Rite Aid next to my office, and I was just going there to get like a water. Just get out of my office for a minute, go for a walk, get a water. And there's an old lady behind me. And the whole time in my mind, I was thinking she's going to stab me. And I had a panic attack because I thought this old lady was going to attack me in uniform.
Yeah, bro.
And I was like, that's not logical. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know what's going on.
Were you that dude in that video that turned around and punched that old lady in the grocery store?
Fuck you.
I know, right?
And so I finally was like, this is not right. Something's wrong. So I seeked help too. We don't have like a mental health thing. There's no base here. So I had to call Military One Source, and they got me help or whatever, like those like free sessions you can get and stuff. And they eventually got me on like medication or whatever to like deal with like what they pretty much said is I was having existential dread. I was having like super high anxiety, and they were saying that because my previous job had fear, like you have the potential to be in a conflict or to respond to something crazy, that your body's on like a high all the time because something could happen. And then my current job has no fear, so I wasn't receiving the fear dopamine hit anymore.
Yeah, your body's not used to not being in danger.
Which was causing me to like freak out. And my counselor was literally telling me to like go do MMA, like go get punched in the face. She was like, go like rock climbing, go do like extreme.
When you get here,
like,
I'll punch you, Zach.
Okay, cool. Do like, thanks, bro. Do like something that makes you feel alive or whatever. And I had to start doing like other stuff to kind of just make my life more threatening. To kind of, it was weird. It's like counterproductive. They tell you, you should relax, try to, but that's not what works for everyone. Mine was, I was too relaxed. I needed more fear. I needed more like stuff happening. That's what helped me. So everyone can deal with it differently.
Interesting to hear that. Like it's like the vastness of things that can work for mental health stuff it blows my mind, man. I basically had to do the exact opposite because my body is so used to being in that constant like fight or flight, and I do it to myself. Like even though I'm not in like an operational unit anymore, like I still like strive to do the absolute best I possibly can at work. And they
Yeah.
call that in therapy like unrealistically high standards or whatever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I hold myself to an extremely high level for no reason. Like I'm still going to get the job done at the end of the day. Dude, Walmart stresses me the fuck out.
Mhm.
I mean, I now
Dude,
understand why because there's so many people there. But I mean,
I had a lady grunt at me at Walmart the other day.
Grunt at you? Oh
Yeah,
yeah, you
she,
told me that on
yeah,
Snapchat. Yeah, yeah,
she
yeah.
grunted. So I was a very large woman, like 300 something pounds. I kid you not.
Rotund.
an ogre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's
A wild
waddling,
Snorlax appears.
she's waddling down the aisle, right? And I'm trying to go past her.
Boom,
So
boom, boom,
I
boom,
went
boom.
over to go around her, and she saw me and then got in my way. She like moved into my way. And I was
That's
like, huh?
wild,
So I
bro.
like stopped, waited for her to like move again, and then I went to go around again, and then she went back in my way and she growled at me. She was like and like looked at me like a dog almost. Like a
Like, do you
dog
want to
trying to
fight, dude?
take his
Did
toy
you
away.
feel
What the
unsafe, like
fuck?
you may get eaten?
No.
I
No.
Hmm.
mean, based off like
Stay strapped
circumstances
or get
about her,
cracked, Brandon.
how big
So
her belly
I
Right.
might have been.
Yeah,
so
yeah, you know.
I looked at her and I was like, what? And she didn't
That's really weird.
there's something, her elevator wasn't going all the way up, maybe too many Doritos, I don't know. And so I just went down a
Weight limits
random,
are on elevators, you
yeah,
know.
there's too much fat in her brain. She couldn't comprehend things. So I went down a random aisle just to avoid her. And I saw her later and she's
Yeah.
like mean mugging me. I don't know what her problem was. But
One
yeah,
thing
Maybe you
that
look like somebody.
maybe.
one thing that I'm still struggling with, and I'm still trying to find a way to deal with it or to make it better, is sleep, man. Like, I don't know how your guys' sleep patterns
Bro,
are, but
I'll
mine are
I'll tell you, bro.
horrible.
Yeah. So like I just want to like kind of corroborate what you guys are saying, because like a couple of these conversations we've had, like Zach and I have noticed that there's a lot of similarities in all everybody's stories, and like trying to like pattern this out, right? Like coming
Yeah.
from an installation like Bogway that was super duper busy to one like Travis, and Travis paints itself as really busy, but it is absolutely
Yeah.
not
They
to the
make it
level that
busy.
Bogway, yeah, not the level that like that Bogway is. What you'd said, Ian, about like having nothing to do, and then all this stuff, like for me, I felt, I said this in therapy, that I felt like I realized I was in a box, and that box was filling with water, and that I felt like it was like at the point where like my head was up and I was like breathing just through the tips of my lips, and that's how I
Yep.
felt. And there was a couple times where like I because at the time my son was like maybe one, like really young, kind of like what you had said, you know, your daughter. And I would feel really, really overwhelmed about something that was going on. And then all of these things, like, you know, that I had seen, right? Suicides, really, really bad traffic accidents, you know, experience I have with somebody trying to kill me. Like, I just, you know, it was almost like it just was rushing and rushing. And I don't know if you've ever had an adrenaline letdown, like where you can genuinely
Yeah.
feel it like flood your body, and you get cold. And like for me, like my hands get really cold and I get kind of shaky. I remember one time specifically, like I was just pacing back and forth in front of the island we have in our kitchen, and I remember my wife asking me like, "What's wrong?" And I lost it, and I told her like I like just have been pacing because I am just seeing faces and like seeing things, and like like as soon as I started saying that, it kind of like was over. And that happened multiple times, and that's something that the therapist eventually told me, because that when I brought up earlier, I don't remember if we were recording yet or if we were talking before, but I mentioned Dan Schilling. Like when that
Mhm.
happened, like this is like when I was really going through a lot of this and understanding that like, holy shit, something is happening to me. I've never felt this way before, and this is really bad. And like the one other time I felt something serious like that was in Germany. It was right after I got attacked. And I had like this one instance of like mega rage, and it was over in like 30 seconds. And I thought that was really weird. And I remember telling the shirt about it because he had asked me, you know, for a couple weeks, like how I was doing. And I told him like, you know, honestly, I got really mad this one time, and that was it. But this was just super different. And the therapist told me, she's like, you know, from what you said, this is an instance where you're finally your body feels comfortable enough to let some of this stuff come to the surface. So I think you know, it is like, you guys are right. There's an element of where when nothing's going on, your brain isn't hyper focused on certain things
You
and
can't ignore
external
it anymore.
stimuli. It can't
Yep.
ignore it anymore, like you said. And that's also, like something that I've really learned too, is that the the manner in which you decide to address this stuff is also going to dictate like you getting over it, right?
Oh, dude, I
And
think
that
it's either gonna make or break it.
absolutely, man. Like, and the one thing too is like, I know that I had to really, really realize that therapy isn't going to make stuff go away. That
Nope.
therapy is going to help you just handle it when it happens. You know what I
Right
mean?
there. Yes,
Yeah,
dude. Yes.
yeah. And I mean, I feel like, just your reaction, like you've experienced that like realization before.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was going to a place called Strong Hope, which is a 30-day inpatient trauma treatment center out in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very apprehensive of going at first, man, because they labeled my PTSD as combat PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been in combat, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we got shot at a couple of times, like in Africa, but like
Mm-hmm.
I have never done this in the line of work.
Yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
So I was like,
you've been in combative situations. Like you were beat
Yeah.
by your
yeah,
Well, were
father.
the yeah. Well, I was gonna say too, were some of the wounds you dressed, were they combat related? Because that might be also too why they
Yeah.
like categorize it
yeah,
that way. But anyway, like I don't
yeah.
want to take away from what you're saying.
No, 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 you're good. And so I was super apprehensive about going at first, man, because like when I got there, not to like give out these people's names, but there were tier one like
Mm-hmm.
people there, like an actual tier one units. There was a
Right.
lot of tier two people there, and
Yeah,
it,
but you
it
felt
turns
like you
out that
weren't supposed to be there.
yeah, I was like, who the fuck am I to like
Right.
talk about this stuff? And there was one
Mm-hmm.
guy, and this is maybe why I have such a soft side or soft heart in my heart for ODAs. It's like I was one of my, or not one of my best friend at that facility was a Green Beret. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why he and I just like almost immediately clicked so well,
Mm-hmm.
but he told me to stop comparing trauma, and I was
Dude.
like, and
Yes.
I just felt bad. I was like, you. I'm not going to say his story, but
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
he he saw and went through some crazy shit.
I bet,
Like,
dude.
lucky to be alive type of
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And here I am complaining about my ex-wife, like my mother, and that one dude who died on me, like, and
Mm-hmm.
getting shot at a couple times. Like, wasn't anything serious. It wasn't until we started digging into like cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectic behavioral therapy, and EMDR
Yeah.
that
I'm in EMDR
like
right now, man.
I'm still in EMDR, bro.
Me
Like,
too.
yeah, it all the symptoms are the same. So
Mm-hmm.
like, what's the point in like comparing to like? And this is the thing I have that's wrong with, or the stigma in security forces. Like, we got to
Mm-hmm.
address it, dude. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you go to mental health or if you go down an arming, you need to take a knee. You are looked at as weak. You're bastardized from your unit. And
Mm-hmm.
I get
Yeah.
it. There's some people that malinger and like fake shit
Right.
to get out of work.
They ruin it for everybody else, essentially.
I've known two of them that have
Mm-hmm.
played this card and gotten 100% VA. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I don't want to be like that. Like, I feel like I
Mm-hmm.
have legitimate issues that I need to address because if I don't, I'm going to die or I'm going to turn into my
Yes.
father.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and me turning into my father is probably worse than death, honestly. So I had to
Right,
address
because
it.
for you that has all those elements tied to it of like, dude, I'm just gonna say this because it's almost ironic. I watched I had no idea that this interview existed, but are you familiar with the rapper Logic?
I've
Yeah.
heard of him. Yeah.
Okay,
He
so
has
I
a
watched.
song, right?
Well, he has a lot of songs. Yeah, he does. He
The
has the
suicide song.
suicide hotline
Yeah.
song, but that's not what I was going to talk
Right, right.
about. Um, there, I guess he had an interview with his biological father, and a lot of it, that interview had a lot to do with like him being abandoned by him. And one of the things
Damn.
that he
That's
said to
deep.
him in this interview was, "I'm a man of my word because you aren't." And that I
Yep.
watched that today, and I was like, "Holy fuck!" Like
Yep.
Jesus, like. I'd never want to hear somebody, especially my kid, say that to me, you know, like, and so
Yeah,
like when you say that, like
absolutely.
you're, feeling like you're your dad, and you know, it just, that has to feel worse than death, I guess is what you're trying to say. You know what I mean? Like that's just,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, I
no,
saw
man.
all the damage, like, or obviously, like, the physical and emotional stuff
Hmm.
he imparted on me, but, like, what he did to my mom, dude.
Hmm.
Like, no woman on the face of the planet should ever be treated like that. And
Right.
here I am going down the same exact behavioral patterns as my dad. So something
Yeah.
had to change, dude. So
It's,
I took that leap and I got help, man. And it
I'm glad that you
almost cost
acknowledged
me my
that, man.
career.
Right.
But
No, dude, that takes a lot. It really does, dude. Because, and I'm gonna say it again, man. Listening to Dan Schilling talk about it, like just kind of what you said, dude. Like sitting there listening to the shit he's gone through, and I'm like, I was like silently while he was talking, comparing trauma, because, like, man, I'm like, dude, like this guy fucking, like they made a movie about what this guy went through. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like,
bro. Who the fuck
and
am
like,
I? Like, who are
right,
we?
exactly. I'm like, oh, dude,
Yeah.
you're a fucking pussy, bro. You're just a, you're fucking sitting here crying about people dead in a car accident. You're sitting here crying about, fucking dead kids and shit. Like, I'm like, this guy fucking, they made a movie about, like, you get off your fucking ass. And like, I realized that, like, I said that to the lady that, my therapist, that, and she's like, that's the wrong way to think about it. But I'm glad that it partially made you come in here. That's really the wrong way to think about it. And one of the episodes that I did with the last guy, the douche that was my co-host before Zach, was we had on Sergeant Michael Sugru, and the episode we did is called "Stomp the Stigma." And
Mm,
he wrote a book about it, so I'll talk about it. But essentially, he
hell
was
yeah.
involved in an officer involved shooting, and he took somebody's life. He had to,
Hmm.
and his entire book, it's really really good. He went through a lot of stuff. He had a kid, and he was divorced, and he dealt with a lot with the police unit, and he was prior security forces as well, and then became a civilian police officer in California. But the stigma he had to deal with, and we were talking to him, and literally in the middle of me like telling him a story, he stopped me. He's like, no. He's like, we don't compare trauma here. He's like, and he said it like
Hmm.
it's in the episode. If anybody's listened to, I don't know if you've listened to that one, Ian. You said you listened to a bunch of them, but
Yeah.
he said that to me, and I was like, and even my mom wrote me, which is a kind of like embarrassing. Sorry, you know what I mean? Because she's like, Brandon, you don't have to, and I'm like, blah blah blah, and but it's like it's so
Leave me
true,
alone.
right? Yeah, stop, mom. And but it's very true. And even now, like talking about it, it still kind of feels hokey to like say, oh, don't compare trauma, because like 100%, like you said, like these guys that you were at that center with, like 100% have been through shit way more serious and intensive, and
Yeah.
like, and even Zach and I, like
Mhm.
a lot of the people that we've had on the podcast, not just Dan Schilling, like have been through just exponentially crazier shit than we have. And
Your trauma isn't their trauma, but
right,
you can experience the same feelings to
Hmm.
exactly,
to your
right,
own respective trauma.
And you know what the
right.
crazy thing was about those tier one and tier dudes or tier two
Hmm.
dudes? They welcomed me in with open arms, and they made me
Probably
feel
felt really
so
awkward.
in. Like it was awkward, but like I had never felt like a sense of
More at home.
community like that.
Yeah.
Like I felt
Wow,
like I belonged there. Like
wow.
just this is gonna sound quirky, but like a bunch of dudes just loving each other, like which is obviously like so not
Bunch of
normal in our
bromances.
No,
culture
yeah,
because what does society say about us? Men must suffer. Like you
yeah,
gotta
yeah.
fucking suffer,
And we
brother.
do it to ourselves too, man.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
dude.
We're
Like
the worst about it,
my mentality for the longest time was if I'm not suffering, like if I'm not beating my body into the ground, if I'm not like how
dude.
we
Yeah.
like discovered each other like on Instagram, like you guys know, like I
Hmm.
do all this like firearm stuff. Like
Yeah.
if I'm not pushing it to the max, shoot faster, shoot more accurately, like there's no reason in doing it. And that's the unrealistic standards. I
Yeah.
mean, me pushing my
Right.
body the way I did for so long is the reason I had surgery 3 weeks ago, like my shoulder surgery. It's
Damn.
like
Well, that's a
that
trauma's
was
response, like what you were saying
yeah.
before.
Yeah.
Doing that to yourself.
Yeah. I mean I felt so alive in the gym. Like it's
Hmm.
just me, the iron. Like I can I can smash this deadlift and I can pretend like I'm smashing my emotions into the ground, or like insert whatever
Dude, I've been,
like
yeah, hell yeah.
hyperbole you
No,
want.
dude. It's true. And it's not hyperbolic, because in that situation, that is exactly what you're doing, man. And I have been in those situations lifting. And dude, I'll say this, like I used to lift a lot. And I actually have a really nice lifting rig at my house. And I did not get the catharsis I thought I would from lifting. And I
Mm,
stopped lifting and started running. And dude, I run 6 days a week at least, and
okay.
He's
if not
always
every
running.
day.
He
I am.
calls
That's
me
that.
while
Like
running.
I do, and I'll talk to him, and
And then he's
I'll
running.
run
And
5 miles. I'm fucking
Zach,
talking
so
to him.
what we're gonna do
Damn, 5 miles. Yeah, I do.
next episode is we're
Oh,
gonna
dude,
have
yeah,
this guest.
it's true,
My
bro. But
cardio is
no, like
okay. It ain't that good.
no, it's but I have gotten more, like me personally, right? Like I've gotten more catharsis and get more release from running than I did lifting. But it's the same
Mm,
thing. Like when I'm running, it is, and not to, again, like not to sound cheesy, but it's like that stoic line of like you make hard the body so that it doesn't disobey the mind,
yep.
and you have to take care of both of those things. And I don't think it's unrelated, those correlations of doing something physical, like you said, because there is the trauma response aspect to it, like you said, that can be unhealthy, where you don't sleep, because that's definitely been a thing I've gone through, where like I can't sleep, I'm not going to sleep, and then I need to do this, and it needs to be fucking ridiculously hard, or it needs to be ridiculously high standards, it has to be perfect, you know
Yep.
what I mean? But it can be a healthy thing too, to find something physical you're doing, whether it is going to the range, or going running, or going lifting. And I would tell anybody dealing with this shit that, on top of taking care of your brain, I'm telling you, man, taking care of your body in some way, doing something physical, it is going to have a response in your mind, and it is going to make
Oh
things
yeah.
so much better and so much clearer for you.
Oh
Like I
yes.
promise, please don't just like talk to somebody. You need to be doing something. Like we are
You
we are
yeah.
mind, body, and spirit, like
Yes.
100%.
It's
You
almost
need to
like you
move.
have to like.
That's what I tell
Still my
people
line.
all
Dude,
the time. Sorry.
got you, Zach, bitch ass.
Like that's what I always tell people, dude, is like you have to move. Like you
Yes.
have to get
Yeah.
out in nature. Like we as humans are not designed to take in this artificial light. Like
Yeah, especially over the
that light
top.
right there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The light that I'm have above my head right now,
Why
it's
that
not
Mm-hmm.
lady
real.
at Walmart was grunting at me. She's like
Right.
really freaking like fat and
It was
not
the
healthy.
fluorescent lights,
She's
dude.
having like a mental breakdown. She doesn't even know what she is.
It's all the seed oils and fluorescent lights.
All the Doritos.
The way that I view myself now, that I am more in control of my thoughts and my emotions, and it's gonna sound really cheesy. All it's done is make me a better warfighter because I am
Mm-hmm.
now in 100% control of my body,
Yeah.
99% control of my head. I still have my hard days. Like
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're
I
never
had
going to go away either.
a couple days ago was a very, very, very bad day for me. But
Mm-hmm.
I have utilized the things I learned at Strong Hope to basically allow myself to sit in those emotions, to
Mm-hmm.
let myself feel those emotions, process it, and then put it back away for when it
Yes.
comes up next time. And that, like, I feel like more of a fucking warrior now than I ever have in my life. Like,
Dude, it's
and I know
because
that's
you're
cheesy.
building a real, it's not, I mean, it sound, I get it, like it sounds cheesy, but it's not, because you're building a toolbox, bro. Like you
Yeah.
literally are. And it's like you're developing a toolbox, you have experience, and you recognize that, and that kind of comes with the territory. And it almost is like one of these things where, like, not to again sound cheesy, but like, for lack of a better way of expressing this, like you recognize the scars you have as a seasoned warrior, right? Or seasoned airman. And you recognize that it does get better, it does make you better. And now that you almost can harness that and recognize it and put it away, and putting it away almost gives you that sense of empowerment that does sort of drive that, feeling better and in control of yourself thing. And if I could build on what you said too, one of the things that I learned in therapy was, I was given essentially like is it an analogy, or like of a roller coaster, right? And
Mm.
that one of the things that she had me learn initially and get to the point where I could, and this is like a process for several sessions was understanding that when you hit the high point of that roller coaster is when you've lost control, and that on your way down it's a hill and a valley, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
every time you go down you're going to go lower past what your threshold was, and it takes more to come back up. And come back up doesn't mean come back up and feel better. It means ramping up and letting those emotions take control, and then you're going to fall even lower each time. And then you have to recognize when you start ascending up that hill and make that
Yep.
hill shorter. Does that make
Yep.
sense? So
Dude, that's
your
awesome.
downtrend, your
Yeah.
downtrend is not as violent, right? So you're not dipping even further. So you recognize when you're going up, because you're going up, you have to come down. And the quicker you recognize it, the littler that hump is, right? The more you get back to baseline.
Oh
And
yeah.
that, thinking about it that fucking way, like and it sounds so simple. And like I would have been the
Yeah.
first person 2 years ago
Yeah.
to be like, that's fucking
Yep.
dumb. You know what I mean? But it
Yep.
absolutely no, but it I would have, and just
That was
being real.
me.
Right.
Yep.
But it absolutely is not fucking dumb, because it, as simple as that sounds, like it it gave me a real tool. And I'll tell you another fucking tool, bro. Like this, and this just happened to me the other day, like a couple weeks ago now with EMDR, is I had a situation, and something happened with another member. We witnessed somebody take their own life. And one of the things that I had to overcome, like the guilt I felt essentially was that, like, I was angry, and these are things that we talked about, and she would encourage me to talk about these things, is that, I was angry about why I was there in the first place. I was angry about how, like, being the universe putting me in that situation.
Yep.
I was angry about the fallout after it with people on my flight. And then I, felt mega guilty that my abilities essentially did not prevent it from happening, because it was put in a
Same.
situation to have a conversation with this person before he took his own life, right? And she said something to me that has helped me process it through the course of EMDR, was that the outcome was going to be shitty no matter what, and that I couldn't change the outcome, but that was the best outcome, because I was there. And that sounds cheesy, and maybe it sounds, I don't know, but like, that really helped me pivot away from thinking about that situation and saying, as simple as it is what it is. That was going to fucking happen. No amount of worrying about it is going to put me back in that situation and feel better about it. Sorry, man. Like,
Yeah.
because I can see this, and it was going to happen anyway, and that was the best outcome that could have happened, because maybe it was worse some other way, you know what I mean? And so, like,
Yeah.
that for sure, you have to go through this process, is all I'm trying to say. If you're
Yeah.
dealing with shit,
Absolutely.
it's not fucking stupid. Like, you will come out with tools, I guess.
Let's talk about like the physiological effects that
Mm-hmm.
EMDR has on you. Like I don't
Right.
know for you. I'll speak for myself. The
Mm-hmm.
first time I did EMDR, I was disgusting crying, dude. Like
Yes.
I like snot like all over my shirt, like
Yes.
like I
Yes.
had never experienced anything like that ever in my life. And for those listening, EMDR, there's two different ways of doing it. There's
Mm-hmm.
like a visual way of doing it where your eye is tracking this light bar,
Yeah,
and
and
the way
EMDR
that
stands
I
for
do it,
eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, is what it
I
stands
was
yes,
for.
looking it up because I
yeah.
had no idea.
Mhm.
The eye processing doesn't really work for me. I feel like I
Maybe
have
hold
undiagnosed ADHD, so
maybe are you
maybe
holding the
I'm holding the
vibrating?
tappers.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So these tappers are very, very lightly shot, more like vibrating in your hands.
Hmm.
And the science behind it is it's supposed to stimulate the left side of your brain and the right side of your brain simultaneously. So
Hmm.
you experience emotions and relive these traumatizing experiences at the same time. At least that's how I understand it.
Yeah, and
And
one thing I told my therapist the first time we did this was that it almost made me feel trapped in the moment, because it made me feel like I couldn't. It's like, I guess if I had to analogize it, that I was a bowling ball going down the alley, and that I couldn't fall into a gutter and get away from heading down towards the pins, because both the left and right paddle or whatever, they're vibrating, like it made it feel like my brain had fucking bumpers, and like
Yes, dude.
trying to get away from those thoughts. It couldn't happen, and it was like
There's no out.
tunneling me through it. And it is a very weird feeling. And like, dude, full disclosure, same, bro. Like I was overwhelmed, and like I fucking just knew somebody walking in the hallway outside was probably fucking could hear me, you know what I mean, at the clinic. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
And
But
dude,
it is what it is.
during that EMDR, my first time doing it, I didn't give a fuck what anybody else thought. Like it was so relieving. I was like, finally, I'm 31 years old. I joined a little bit later in life. Like I joined when I was 24. So I have like
I was 23. Yeah.
Damn near 20 years worth of like childhood trauma mixed with military trauma, like just pent up, and it is finally coming out, dude. Like I recommend it to everybody, man. Like anybody I like talk to at work that is struggling with mental health, I immediately direct them to my therapist. Like, dude, talk therapy doesn't work for some people. Like I know EMDR doesn't work for some people, but at least give something a try. It's better than just sitting away, like for the airmen, like in your dorm room, like getting drunk.
Oh yeah, dude.
Like don't make the same mistakes like us older.
It's the easy way out.
It is, dude. It
really is,
way.
and you may feel like you're tough in that moment because you're just fucking throwing it back,
really
and
not.
you're not, dude. It goes back to what you said, Ian, that like it made you a better warfighter, because now it's like I wish I could find a better way to analogize it, to use that word again, that you've just taken all this shit, and it's like tools in your toolbox now. And having those tools are just as important as being proficient with your duty weapon.
Yeah, absolutely. And
it's like,
my whole mindset,
forging a sword. Sorry. It's got to go through fire.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
It's got to go through fire. It's a forge to make it stronger.
Yep.
So
there you go. Zach saved it. Yeah,
that was good.
It's almost like
Zach
the
saved
podcast
it.
is called "I Came with Fire" or something. I'll be here all night.
All three of us had like a super stereotypical like security forces overreaction.
We did.
Oh
absolutely.
My God.
Yep. Exactly.
But my whole focus has shifted now.
I'm gonna clip that, and it's going in.
That's fine. You do what you gotta do.
Like and this is gonna sound weird too, but like my love and like my adoration for like the lower enlisted is just at a level I can't even like put into words anymore. Because I physically know what they're struggling with, because they slid into my DMs about it. But like my heart goes out to these kids, man, because they're being raised in a weird time in security forces right now, like where we don't really know if we have an identity anymore. One, because of Simba, and two, like the GWAT's over, dude. Like,
well, dude, yeah.
And how are we preparing for the next war? Like,
dude, and it's security forces. Like, first off, like you said, you brought that up, man. I watched the brief that I don't remember his name now, but he was one of the SFG commanders I had when I was at Maelstrom, and now he's a fucking 2-star. Wilcox, I think, maybe. He gave a brief about the fallout and like the actual report that came out, and I listened to it on my drive home because it's on fucking YouTube, and it was like right after it came out. I was just like, what the fuck? And I knew people that were there, and like I'd gotten like their POVs, and like, you know, I already knew some of the shit that happened that like wouldn't make the news and stuff like that. But like, you know, and just how much the DOD really was like fucking up the Air Force's ass about what happened. Like it took the entire responsibility away from the Air Force, basically. You know what I mean? But you know, to your point about like an identity crisis in security forces, I have always said this. SF does not know what it wants to be.
No.
Like every once in a while we'll be like, okay, we're focusing on law enforcement. The SF Academy is going to be it's going to be like, you know, FLETC certified. We're going to send all these people to FLETC. It's going to be a real law enforcement academy. And then a year or two will go by, and maybe we'll get a new security forces director or whatever. And it's like, actually, air-based ground defense is what we need to be focused on. And just flip-flops all the time. It flip-flops. You never know what you're going to be. And we always say this about us us is that we're jacks of all trades and masters of none, because
Masters of none.
that's the fucking truth, dude. Like,
Yeah.
what do you want me to be? Do you want? And it's really easy if you do nuke security, because that's your fucking job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's pretty
nothing
black and
fucking
white.
else. That's the only black and white, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
But for everything else, and getting out of nukes and going into the real Air Force, like, you really see like just the confusion and the level of confusion, and just how much people are not proficient at their jobs, to no really detriment of their own. Like, obviously you can learn your job, and a lot of that's on you, but what I mean is the Air Force is not kept up with civilian counterparts in law enforcement, right? So that, and I will say this too. When I was thinking about getting out, I called and actually spoke to a San Francisco Police Department recruiter, just to fucking hear like kind of what they would offer, right? And I really had no interest. Like, I really had no intention of going, but I wanted to hear, right? And this guy literally told me, he goes, no one looks at Air Force or like military police, whether you're an MA or an MP or security forces, in the civilian side, as experience anymore, to the degree where they're going to take you in and say, oh yeah, you're seasoned. He's like, no one looks at it anymore. He's like, enough people have come in now to where we understand that you guys don't do things the way that we do. The level of training you guys don't get, the experiences aren't there anymore. You guys are very antiquated in how you operate and do things. And I'm like, wow, like, this dude is not wrong. You know what I mean? It's so true. And so there's no incentive anymore for these kids that you want to tell them, they show up at the recruiter's office and like, I want to be a police officer. Like, I don't know if this conversation you have with somebody, Zach, but like, you should definitely, if you're a recruiter, be like, listen, man, like, yes, the Air Force has cops, but I'm going to use these abbreviations, right? In air quotes, cop, like, very rarely, and there's only a couple of installations, like, like Vogelway, fucking Kadena, like, maybe that you're going to actually get to do real law enforcement with, like, at Vogelway, we're partnered with Polizei, German police.
Yeah, I'd explain to kids that, like, look, there's like 3 different types of bases. There's a security base, a law enforcement base, and a nuke base. You could potentially never be at a law enforcement base, so you won't ever really get any cop stuff. And there's really no way to
know.
And
most are security oriented.
Yeah, it's like, you have no way to know which one it's going to be, except the nuke bases. You know for sure they're going to be nuke bases. But like, but like, and I would explain that to them or whatever.
Korea might be another one.
Yeah, the only thing is that, like, I know California, New York, Massachusetts, and there's another state. They're really, really strict about like military coming over, whatever. But almost every other state, as long as you have your LEOSA, it is a lateral move. Like Texas.
I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, Texas will do it. Washington, Idaho, Montana.
I think Florida will let you transfer some of that time if you go into like sheriff's department.
Yeah. The big thing is you have to have you have to have a LEOSA. So like that's like the thing. So like
I'm gonna pee real quick. I don't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. No, you go for it, dude.
A senior airman who just does like his 4 years, doesn't have a LEOSA, he's not lateraling into any police agency. He's starting from ground zero. You might as well have services in the Air Force. That's his equivalent. But a lot of agencies, if they see the LEOSA, it's a lateral, but you're still on you're on a 1 year probation. They still know you don't know anything about civilian police. So some of them you can skip an academy, but you do go to like a crash course.
California.
Yeah. That's the thing I was saying. Like California, New York,
you have to go to the police academy.
And there's one other state. I can't remember which one it is. I think it's Oregon. It might be Oregon.
I genuinely don't know.
But yeah, in the other states you can skip the academy, but most of them will be like, yeah, you skipped the academy, but here's your like 90-day crash course to learn
be a cop.
This county's laws or this state's laws or
right.
Or how
I had a lot of friends in Montana that separated. Well, I shouldn't say a lot. I like a couple, I guess, that went and were like Montana highway patrol or whatever, and they did not have to go through the academy. At least at the time. I don't know if the laws are still the same because they change very, very frequently. But but yeah, no. That's the point, right?
There is a lot of confusion too. A lot of police agencies don't like taking military just in general, just because
we have different ways.
Yeah,
treating responses.
even how we communicate.
Mm-hmm.
Our phonetic alphabet is completely different than a
We
civilian
don't
phonetic
use 10
alphabet.
code either.
Yep, we don't use 10 code.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
like it's really hard to take someone who's been programmed to do a very specific thing for 6, 10+ years and then
15.
deprogram them and try to make them do something else.
Mm-hmm.
These agencies sometimes will just look at him and go, I'd rather just take a new 22-year-old
Right, because we
than
can train them exactly how we
exactly
want
how we
to.
want them.
But that's the point, man, is what I'm getting at is the Air Force genuinely has failed in that aspect to keep
Mm-hmm.
security forces relevant. And, I know that there's a lot there's a lot of bureaucracy, and I've heard from people that are part of those processes that actually want to make changes.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, bro, it's impossible. They're like I'm a fucking chief. I just work here, and it's like you would think like maybe as a senior airman, like you think like, oh, that guy can do something. Not at all. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's kind of nuts. But that's the point I'm making is like to your point too, Ian, that security forces has an identity crisis. It doesn't know what it wants to be right now. I know the last I heard, at least, going back to shred outs for law enforcement and security again, that the prime they getting rid
Yeah.
not happen. That's not see. That's the
Yeah.
last thing I heard, and that I also heard too that and correct me if I'm wrong, right? That the focus is air-based ground defense for
Yeah.
obvious reasons with what's coming up on the horizon, and that what I had heard was that the majority of troops, when they were talking about doing two different tech schools like they have in the past and having a security and a law enforcement shred out,
Mm-hmm.
was that like 85% of airmen were going to go be ABGD, and that the other 15% were going to be law enforcement.
I've never heard it like divided about into like percentages like that.
The most recent thing that I've heard is that the Air Force is currently teetering. This is like a couple months ago. The Air Force is teetering with the idea that security forces will get rid of law enforcement completely, and they'll just go to DAF.
Yeah.
Well, so they'll just hire all the staff civilian guys will be the cops. Security forces will be base ground defense. So flatline security and the gates. That's it.
Right. And
so you won't ever be a cop anymore.
So one thing that I heard is this like kind of model, because the Air Force is like the little brother of the Army, right? Because the Air Force came from the Army, but at least from my understanding and being a joint Army Air Force unit in Germany, is that there are field MPs and then there are traffic MPs, right? And if somebody's listening, and if I'm telling this inaccurately, please correct me, right? But that the majority of the MPs I work with were field MPs, and they rotated every couple of months out to the field with everybody else, like the infantry and all that, and trained that way. And only a small handful they went to the Army's traffic school, and they only did law enforcement, and those guys did not rotate and they did not change. And that was kind of what the Air Force was looking at going at, because of China and Russia and World War III on looming, right? Is they need everybody to be proficient at air-based ground defense and a lot of these other capabilities that they want security forces to have. Like, one thing I think is really cool is I've seen like Dagger become something really legitimate. It looks like that's building a real culture. It looks like it's becoming something like it, honestly, and this happens very often in the military in general, is a lot of things like Dagger end up morphing into their own thing. And then eventually, like, I could see Dagger being it's its own job, right? Yeah, I could see it becoming that. And it seems from an outsider's perspective, because I've never been Raven or Dagger, is that it looks like it's heading in that direction, at least from that outsider's perspective. And maybe more.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of friends that are Daggers, man. I work with a couple of them, and just like it doesn't seem like they have an identity crisis. Like, they know that they are soft support, and they will do whatever the fuck it takes to get those soft dudes to where they need to go. They do more than that we can't talk about on here.
Isn't that just like in life though, bro? Like, having a purpose and a direction is going to be like,
and they love
I wanted to.
And same with the Raven dudes.
Yeah, I want to touch.
Dude, it looks amazing, man. Like, I wish that like the opportunity, like we were talking earlier before about how like those opportunities to go to like air assault and stuff like that were like few and far between. But like that's something when I was an airman that like I wish a lot of this stuff was around and that it was more open because and I don't know if it's still this way, but I know at one point it was like you had to have the luck of being at an installation that had these jobs for you to even be looked at for them instead of having like an actual process to go through and get them, which is shitty because like me, dude, my first duty station was Maelstrom. I was there for almost 8 fucking years trying to leave. You know what I mean? And I got the shit into the stick. If I wanted to do something else,
I mean,
it
the
didn't
only
matter.
reason I got hired as an instructor where I work at now is because I came from the specialty teams within security forces. Like, and my specialty team was EST. Like, and it allowed us to go to SWAT schools. The only reason I was allowed that opportunity was because I went to a base that just happened to have one. Like,
just had it.
It's luck of the draw, man. And it's been like that.
And if you're nukes, you can go to TRF. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah.
I wanted to touch a little bit on like how like security forces lost its identity and it's not like it doesn't have one right now. It reminded me. I just remembered. So I'm part of a security forces networking and mentorship page on Facebook. I don't know if you guys are both on it or whatever or not. There's this one guy back in like January, and he was asking like, how can I better incorporate like PT into my squadron, make people want to do PT more type of stuff. And for those who are listening, the Air Force as a whole sees PT as an individual requirement. So group PT is not something we typically do. I know like the Army, like they're doing PT like every day. The Marines do like all the freaking time too. The Air Force is typically an individual requirement, but security forces, it being more Army
related.
Group
runs are like a special event.
Security forces wants it to be like after every shift or like a couple times a week where you do it as a group, that type of stuff. But it's not. It's different unit to unit. It's different flight to flight. Like I've been on flights where no one does PT. It's on your own all the time, that type of stuff. But I commented on it because he was asking what the issue is with like trying to get people to do like PT or failing like physical standards and stuff. And I said it. I believe the biggest issue with PT in our career field is the top leadership thinks our AFSC, Air Force Specialty Code, is comparable to actual special warfare when we are actually just one of the easiest / min qualified AFSCs for people to join. The Air Force wants its defenders to be elite, but are too afraid to actually hold us to a higher physical standard because they know over half our manning would be gone overnight.
Right there.
They circumvent this with Ravens or DAGREs or other special units within our career field, but that doesn't make SF as a whole any more elite. Stop trying to make everyone a Raven and just get them to pass the PT test with ease. Work to make PT not stressful while also respecting your airman's time. And I actually got like one of the most likes, and people were like, yeah, that makes the most sense, that type of stuff. But what's funny is there was like the retired mass sergeants, the retired seniors and chiefs, the boomers.
Back in my day.
They came in there and they were like, you ain't doing PT every day. And it's like, I was elite. I was an elite honor guard or some stupid thing. And it's like, cool,
I served in the Cold War.
No, the fuck you didn't.
Oh, okay. That's an oxymoron. Yeah, like because the Cold War didn't happen. Nothing happened.
That's what I'm getting is we still don't have like a culture identity, and like you can't tomorrow be like, hey, everyone needs to be this way.
No.
Because you can't put out a graphic of sacred things in security forces and be like, problem solved.
Yeah.
George Bush on the fucking aircraft carrier, mission accomplished in the background. You know what I mean?
Dude. Like one thing that
it's got to be from within.
It could be from within.
One thing I tell the students all the time that I talk to, or give my introductions to or whatever, mainly with pistol. I always start off the class with like, do you guys understand the power you have on your hip? That weapon system will take life if you know how to use it properly. And a lot of the looks I get are like, what? Like, sorry, you mean I might be put in a position to use this? I'm sitting here like, motherfucker, like, yes, dude.
Yeah.
You have to be proficient with this. And it's the same thing in physical fitness. Like, if I'm like this super advanced gunfighter or whatever, but I can't run 100 yards without my heart exploding, you're a liability to everybody, dude. Like, I'm not carrying you.
You're a loot drop.
You are a very, you're an expensive loot drop.
You are a loot drop.
You are.
And I just,
but like, it's like, it wasn't security forces. I don't know if they're still trying to do it because I haven't been in it for 4 years, but there's like talks of them making like their own PT test, right? Kind of like
No, there
how
is.
so
This
there
is the
is one.
burn-in year. This is the 2023 was the burn-in year.
Okay, so starting next year, 2024, you have to meet this new test on top of the Air Force test, or is
No,
it?
you don't have to take the AFPT if you're taking the SFPT.
Okay, but the
That'd be
SFPT,
shitty.
that would be, but the SFPT, Brandon, because you
Mhm.
know more about it. Do you think that's going to make a lot of people now fail, and then they're gonna?
So yes, I'll answer your question in two different ways, right? The intent with the security forces PT test was it to be more functionally accurate to a security forces member, right? So
Yeah, to
like
their
part of the
job.
PT test, right, is like a body drag. There's a
Mm-hmm.
sprint portion from what I
Mm-hmm.
remember. There's like a farmer's carry portion. And some of it looks really similar to some of the like special ops PT tests, although it's not as hard. But you know
It's
what I
watered
mean? Like
down.
they
Yeah,
do more dynamic things and
yeah.
more dynamic movements than
Because
just
the
the
Air Force
AFPT.
test run a mile and a half.
Mile and
When
a
am I
half push-ups
ever
and
going to run a
sit-ups
mile
and
and a
waist
half?
measurement because they brought the waist. Yeah, they brought the waist measurement back. I mean, you may have to run a mile and a half, but anyway.
Yeah.
So it's more dynamic, meant to be more dynamic. And then, but I haven't seen any of the like passing criteria to give you that information. But one of the things I heard, right, and this is I heard grapevine, right? So, and Ian, you may know more than me, so jump in if I'm wrong. Is that part of it was like a 400-meter sprint and then a body drag, like right after, to simulate like you chasing somebody and then your partner goes down and you have to drag them to safety. And
Hmm.
just when I heard that, I was like, and you're supposed to be in kit too, right? So
Yeah.
plate carrier. I was like, so you know how many people are gonna fuck this up? I was like, they're gonna be handing out fucking PT waivers left and right, and they're gonna
Yeah.
be and they're gonna be failing people left and
You
right.
you were in you were at our deployed location in Africa, Brandon, and
Mm-hmm.
there were airmen there who I would not trust with anything.
Dude, a couple of them come to
Because of their
mind,
physical standards.
and their size. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of them who they couldn't fit properly in their plate carrier, and you knew if they got shot, they'd just be dead because it wouldn't even hit their plate carrier.
Well, yeah, dude. Like, I remember there was a certain female whose plate carrier maybe took up a fifth of her, fucking torso because of her size. And
is
you're
this
right, bro.
is this the same female who, when I asked her to try to load the 249, like show me how to load it, she put the rounds in backwards? Are we talking about the same one?
We're talking about the same one.
Oh, I
Yeah. No,
never
it just,
I never had to like stop myself from yelling at an airman because I
dude.
knew yelling at her wasn't gonna help her, you
No,
know.
no.
So I had to walk away and then come back and then like help her.
Wait, was me swapping
Mm-hmm.
out my headphones?
Yeah, no. That's the truth, man.
Did that
Like,
stop the recording when I swapped out the headphones?
What?
Can you guys hear me?
No.
no.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. What is that?
Yeah, he has like a little thumbs up that pops up every once in a while. I don't know what it is.
Oh, this is the first time I've seen it.
Yeah, it's happened once or
But
twice.
anyway, yeah, no. But that's just the point, man. Is that the people that are in premium shape, are the ones that are very rare. Is kind of all I'm
Yeah.
getting at, and we just lost Ian, so probably maybe we could just wrap up. But mental health, right?
Mhm.
Super duper big stigma. I will say to its credit that the Air Force is getting better at that stigma, but there are some paths the Air Force is taking that are not good. And to what Ian was saying before is
Mhm.
that the Air Force does not teach resilience. The Air Force teaches you to be a victim, and that's a
Yep.
fucking fact. And the Air
Yes.
Force needs to fucking tell. And I didn't really care for this person, but I had a commander who would say this about morale when airmen would complain about morale, that morale is in your fucking hands. It's not my responsibility to to give you morale. Morale is in your hands, and that is 110% the fucking truth. And the yes, external circumstances are going to have an effect on your morale, and that is what it is. You know what I mean? But the fucking truth of the matter is, even with mental health, is that you need to take things into your own hands.
Mm-hmm.
You need to understand that resiliency means being okay and recognizing that and getting up and not wallowing in what happened. And
Mm-hmm.
part of doing something about it and not wallowing is getting help. But it's also recognizing certain things too, that, you need to recognize your own shortfalls as well and address them, because that is something the Air Force does not teach. And these are things that tie 100% into resiliency overall. Resiliency does not mean you're a victim. Resiliency means falling off the horse and getting back on it and riding off. And I'll bring up something that I listened to the One's Ready guys talk about is I want to say it was Aaron was talking about how they've had guys like during jumps where they will their parachute won't open and they have to go to their reserve chute. And he said the first thing they do to those guys is send them right back up into the plane and tell them to jump again, so that they have a successful jump right after their fucking failed jump where they had to open the reserve chute. They had that fucking butthole pucker oh shit moment, and then they fucking confront it immediately, don't let the fear settle in, and they go and they have a successful jump. And they say, there you go. That's fucking resiliency. And you know what that is too, is that's your leadership not letting you fall into that trap of, oh shit, and it's forcing you to have some sort of resiliency. And that's something that security forces is not good at, is forcing people to fucking confront their shit and deal with it, and then being a part of the solution. Like what Aaron was talking about in that situation is, oh fuck, your reserve should open. Like security forces would be like, oh poor you. You know what I mean?
Well, I think the issue with that is there's so many cops. Like security force is the largest career field in the Air Force, and they know another one is coming. Like honestly, and overall leadership sees like you as a number. Your flight chief might care about you. Your supervisor should care about you at a minimum.
Right.
But like when you start getting up to like ops superintendent, commander, base command, like you start getting up there, you're just a number. And unfortunately, in today's security forces and probably most Air Force jobs, they know that if you're having a problem or you're messing up, you can leave, because the next airman will take your position and fill it, and and the mission will get accomplished. And this goes back to like when we had Chief Cody as the Chief Master of the Air Force. Do more with less. That's still a thing in the Air Force, even though we've had 3 Chief Master Sergeants since then, 2 at least, I think.
Dude, that's one of the things too that like I love throwing in the faces of some of these like older civilians that work around these units, is they're like, oh well, back in my day we did this and we had all this other shit. And I was like, do you realize how much fucking bigger the Air Force was in the 80s? Like it was way bigger than it is today.
Yeah.
And you guys had a lot less to fucking do. Yeah. So now there are less people with more shit. Like they literally have multi-capable airmen. So now you have airmen who are multiple AFSCs doing shit because there aren't enough people to fill those AFSCs. So I'm sorry, not sorry. Shut the fuck up with your shit. Yeah. That's not helping. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So or then being like, this wasn't a problem when I was here, or like we could handle that problem. It's like, great.
Right.
So it's still sucking now because you failed to fix it then. So now move
That's
out of the way.
That's something they just can't even fucking fathom.
Move out of the way now so we can fix it for the next generation of airmen. Because you're still being the problem.
Right.
Like move. Get out of the way.
Dude, I know that's literally one of the problems that I have with fucking old hat civilians that hang around for a paycheck. But anyway, man, it's too bad we lost Ian. I really appreciate him coming on for that conversation about mental health, because it's it's a very real one, very real problem facing the military. Suicide rates are still up. I don't know. I thought I remember reading that another year after 2019 surpassed that suicide rate. I think it did.
I think 2020 and then 2021 were both higher, but for security forces specifically, 2019 was the highest.
Right.
The Air
29.
Force
Okay. So
did go up though.
The Air Force numbers went up, but there he is. The Air Force numbers went up, but the security forces was the highest in 2019.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Can you hear us,
Yeah, can
Ian?
you guys hear and see me okay?
Can't hear you, brother. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can? There you are. Yeah. Sorry for he just went away. So
We'll wrap
for
it
some
up.
technical difficulties, we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you guys for listening. I just wanted to say too that today marked the year for I Came with Fire podcast, not the year for having Zach, the real co-host, on, because Zach is the co-host that matters. And but that we also hit 1,000 subs on YouTube. Thank you so much, you guys.
Yes, thank you very much.
You know, the statistics still say that there's a lot of people who listen but don't hit that subscribe button. So please hit the subscribe
Press
button.
it.
Yep, it doesn't take any effort. Dude, even if you hit the subscribe button and mute us because I'm ugly, that's fine. Just keep that subscribe button. Hit it. You know what I'm saying? And as always, please support us by supporting our sponsors. Head on over to Redefine Violence. Get yourself some cool shirts, sweatshirts, MMA gear, hats, and Skull and Crossbeans coffee. Both of those 10% off with code FIRE10. So, all right, y'all. Thank you so much for listening. Zach and I are getting out of here. Cheers.